So welcome to this panel where we will be discussing technology, César, and our ATM modernization efforts in deployment for the next decade, because we are arriving at the end of the CP1 implementation. Maria Grazia has mentioned that there is a lot of progress that has been achieved. There is still some final miles to complete, but we also need to look ahead, and this panel is going to look at what would be coming next, what we should be focusing on. My name is Alain Sibert. I'm the Chief for Technology and Strategy at the César Joint Undertaking, and I will try to moderate this very interesting panel. I think we are all very grateful, and also on behalf of the César Joint Undertaking, to Romazza for organizing this fantastic event and having all this crowd gathered here. It's really amazing. Thank you very much. I'm very happy, I would say, for this panel for three reasons. One is that it is hosted here at a time when we celebrate the successful world-first implementation of FFIs. I think it's a sign of European, Romanian, global leadership, and we need to keep that in mind when we think of shaping the next ambition for deployment over the next decade, because the world is actually looking at us right now still, and we cannot take this for granted. The other reason I'm particularly happy is that we have a very interesting panel. I mean, when I look from Adrian, who is running the operations at Romazza, Dirk at DFS, Heiko with a CP1 experience, and Victor, who is leading a European champion in tech that just announced some very successful deals also on the other side of the Atlantic. We have a very good panel to discuss what our ambitions should be next. And third, because when it comes to CP2, we are in the middle of the process together with the SDM and with EASA and the stakeholder community to define what it should contain, so there is no better time to have a conversation when the process is ongoing. And we will be organizing workshops in March and later on to continue to engage in these conversations. So that's just to say that every question at this stage on CP2 is very welcome, because we're in the middle of the process. So let's start. And I must say I'm a little bit scared, because it's rare that I have chief operating officers sitting next to me. I often have CTOs calling me. So let's start a little bit with, I would say, the context. We've heard that we are facing capacity challenges. The security context has completely changed. The prospects for growth are challenging and very real. For you, Adrian and Dirk, but also Heiko, Victor, if you want to step in, what are for you the first signs you see today that the traditional ways of addressing these challenges are reaching their limits?
Thank you for your question. Good morning, everybody. From Romazza's perspective, the CP2 is less about introducing new concepts and more about confronting the operational limit of the current system. Many of those limits are already visible today, particularly when we have to deal with network interfaces. What changes under this CP2 is not the direction, but the urgency to need and the need to act together. First signs that traditional way of absorbing growth will no longer work. We still manage to cope with traffic growth with sector splitting, short-term flow measures, tactical coordination, and local optimization of the interface. But we see that this shifts the problem downstream or sideways rather than resolving it. We see that capacity becoming fragile rather than robust, greater sensitivity to the disruption, whether military activities and network constraint, and higher workload variability that cannot be predicted or absorbed reliably. In short, the system still functions, but with less margin and less resilience. That is usually the first warning sign in any complex operational system. This is what is happening.
Thank you, Adrian. Dirk, you want to add to this?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. First, thanks for the very kind invitation to this event. It's outstanding organized, yeah. And yesterday I had the pleasure to see FFIs working in the ops room. It was a pleasure. Normally, the first mover of an innovation has a bloody nose, yeah, but I haven't seen this yesterday. So it seems to be successful. Congratulations for this. But now back to your question, yeah, with the traditional means of increasing performance, increasing capacity. What did we do in the past? Sector splits. Yeah? So first we had one sector providing perhaps 50% of the capacity, then in the same sector family we made a split. Second sector, then we provided 75%, third sector 90%, fourth sector 100%, and so on and so on. What we see in Germany, 2019, we had 100 sectors in operation. 2025, we have still 100. Yeah, because we made the experience further splits of sectors will not improve the performance of our general system and will not increase the capacity. Why is this the case? Because the more sectors I have, the more transition coordination work is required. It makes everything more complex. The time that an aircraft is passing through the sector is very short, so the possibility that an ETCO is doing something is really less. So first sign is now this one, and I think what we have to see as well, and what we see, sure, now we increase the staffing in the next year, that we can open all the sectors again. But the most important point for us is digital sky. Yeah. I think this will help us in the future. That means 2025 now onwards, yeah, we have to invest in digital sky, interoperability, TBO, ADSC, APP, all these very good initiatives which are on the way.
Thank you, Dirk. Heiko, do you have a perspective on this from the deployment manager?
Yeah, maybe just good morning, everybody, from my side. Just to complement a bit what Dirk was, let's say, saying about, let's say, the traditional way how to create capacity by splitting sectors. This is also something that we cannot maintain in the future, because also there are some other, let's say, limitations that we have to face, like the availability of radio frequencies. We know that each sector normally requires a separate frequency, and now, let's say, the frequency band is almost saturated, so there's nothing more that we can really use. So even there you see that this conventional way of creating more capacity by adding sectors and sectors is no longer working. Huh? And also this requires some other modifications that need to be done in the voice communication systems. You need to make sure that you adapt all the different frequencies. You need to have the, let's say, voice communication lines. You have, let's say, an increased coordination that could also require some internal system coordination or coordination with other partners, and also could create quite complex different sector configurations that also need to be maintained and also supervised. Thank you.
Victor, do you have a perspective on this from your client engagements?
Well, yes, first of all, good morning, and thank you again for having me here. It's been a great event, and just to extend also my congratulations to Romatza. We've been very happy to work under your leadership to this great success, so really well done. And coming back to your question, you were saying at the beginning, Alain, that you are a little bit worried with so many operations experts in this panel. So am I, as a technology provider. But if I may say, as you say, from the client and the engagements and from our perspective as a technology provider, I think the first signs that we are seeing is an urgent need for technology. And I think Jacopo mentioned that as well in his panel, talking about the digital transformation. I think it is starting to become absolutely clear that the challenges that there are in the operation and the ones to come will require additional technology in order to be able to address them, and that technology needs to be delivered at a speed that probably is not the same speed that was required 20 years ago. I think that is probably the two clear signs that I'm seeing from our side.
So if we look at CP2, it is a great and also a kind of dangerous tool because it is a regulation to somehow enforce a degree of deployment at a certain point in time, and when there is a recognition that we need a coordinated effort on top of the usual efforts to get over that hill. So if you look at, I mean, you have expressed that you're already having challenges today. If we look at the next 10 years, and with your plans, and with what you can do, and I'm looking in particular at the two directors of operation, you're recruiting, you're working on airspace redesign, you're implementing changes at the pace you can. What for you are the main, I would say, aspects you're looking for to somehow bring you into a different performance envelope within a reasonable time frame and to address the challenges ahead?
Recruiting and training more controllers remain essentially, but it's slow, it's expensive, and as Dirk already mentioned, increase the complexity of coordinating. So from operational point of view, the next challenge will be to deal with the complexity management, not raw capacity, which becomes dominant. Without better data shared, predictability, and network level planning, traditional way of solving the problems will not solve the problem. Practically, the main barrier is synchronized deployment of the technology. Synchronized deployment of the technology because the systems now changing very slow. They have long certification cycles, and they are based on localized engineered solution. And training, that has an impact on training that must be absorbed by each NSP. So operations are already network-wide, and systems still evolves nationally. So the evolvement of the system should be networked somehow.
Thank you, Dirk.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's always the traditional three points or aspects which we consider. First, it's airspace, so we improve the sectorization, not increase the number of sectors, so adapt better to the traffic flows. I think we have now a stable, unstable situation here, therefore we can improve there a lot. The recruitment machine is running, and what is now very important for us are these, I think now buzzwords which we have as well in CP2. It's first TBO, so we have two TBO systems running, one in Karlsruhe and one in Munich, and when we made the experience, TBO is a very good tool, but we can further improve this. We have to have better input data, and we know this. Input, for example, what would be very helpful is additional information from FFIs. I think even more and better information from ADSC, APP, which we expect. Then we have better trajectories, we can better calculate our conflicts, we can make the automation of the transfer of aircraft from one sector to another sector. And now it's a little bit perhaps strange. Now I'm an operational guy and I'm as well supporting service-oriented architecture. Yeah. I'm sitting with Friedrich Menge, who is the CTO, in one room. We discuss it every day, but as well from an operational point of view, I see some advantages in the future. What we see now when we change something in our system, and the systems are sometimes 15 years old, and were always improved, and what happened then, it's like when you build a house here, you start with building the house, and then after 2 years you think, okay, I need perhaps 2 additional home offices. Yeah, then you have 2 home offices there. oh, instead of two kids which were planned, now twins are there, yeah, saying, well, we have 3 kids, yeah, we need another room for the kid. Then, oh, not only 1 car, 2 cars, yeah. So what happened is the same with the software and the system. Later on, you add and add and add, and then you have this typical spaghetti code. And then you implement then new functionalities. I think the effort is really high to integrate this. So I'm looking forward to a service-oriented architecture where we add, perhaps in the future, then service like my app on my mobile, yeah, and perhaps I have 2 different apps then, and then I have for both apps then a normal version and a professional version for very high density traffic areas, and I add this, and the integration work is regarding the effort very low, and then we are faster and we can speed up, and this is, I think, as well would support the digital sky. And in addition, what we need is bandwidth. You know, we are so keen to use CPDLC data link. It's such a good tool. I think we make more than 1 million messages per year in Karlsruhe every year. That's crazy. What is the impact on capacity and how does it help us in the upper airspace? And hopefully we have it as soon as possible in the lower airspace.
Victor.
Yeah, I think I like to jump in now that we have started talking about technology, and I feel much more comfortable. Thank you, Dirk. So first of all, I'd like to echo on a few ideas that both Adriana and yourself have put on the table. First of all, the tools that we can provide to you are only as good as the data that they receive. And this is where the network view is absolutely essential. Because as we saw here with FFIs or whatever, okay, it's not just about being able to receive the information, it's making sure that everybody is using the information in the same manner so that the tools, no matter how technologically advanced they are able to work with better data. So that is why, in my opinion, one of the challenges of CP2 is to precisely work on that synchronization that Adrian, you were referring to. And on the different way of doing systems, I think I completely agree. We support fully, both from an Indra perspective, but also, as many of you know, from an industry perspective, because the whole ground industry have come together to try to work in this new service delivery model. First of all, because we think it is important for aviation. Secondly, because without a different way of doing things, it is impossible to address the challenges. And I agree with you that times where you could do super big banks, are gone, and we need to find ways of doing that. And I will be first a little bit negative and then positive, if you allow me, just to keep a neutral view. First of all, let's not be under any illusion, okay? We have systems in Europe managing air traffic today that were put in operation when Netflix core business was renting DVDs, okay? Talking about digital architectures, while we have those systems into operation, it's not possible. At a point in time, sorry, we need to rip the Band-Aid off. We need to take it, we need to take that pain, and that initial pain is not going to be easy to go from a system from the 80s, we have cases of systems from the 80s, to some sort of platform that enables precisely what you have described, okay? That is the negative one. Now let's move to the positive to change a little bit the dynamics. I think we're starting already to see the advantages in reality beyond the buzzwords, beyond the hype, beyond new service delivery model being trending topic in Europe these days. We are talking about the FFI's implementation in Romazza. Okay, that's an external service along with the lines of the new service delivery model approach that has been integrated into an existing platform. With Enaire, I see Enrique around, we have put into operation in a really, really groundbreaking tool for tactical conflicts management, not just to detect them, but actually to proactively make sure that they don't happen. And that was done by taking a service that was designed for ITEC and integrated this into a platform that is SACTA, that is not the platform that it was originally designed to. So we have real example that this is working for real. We need to work together and we need to make sure that whatever we do in technology is not the goal in itself, it's a means to achieve the goal. And I think in this case, it's clear how it can contribute.
Heiko, you want to add to this?
Yeah, maybe just a short sentence also what Victor said. I think a lot of good things are already happening now. So already happening with the CP1. As we could see yesterday, this FFI's demonstration from Romazza was really impressive and also shows that we in Europe, we are really the top leaders in the world. And I think also there it's very important to think about that even now with the SWIM concept, the change is already starting. So we already have this idea of service provision and service consumption. So in the CP1, we have around 450 services that SWIM will provide. So that's quite a lot. And I think we can build on that with our CP2. So that also means that there should be a continuation from CP1 to CP2. And we shouldn't, let's say, throw away all the good things that we already have now in the CP1 that we need to implement.
I would like to just drill a little bit further on this because I think there is a lot of interest for the implementation of the new service delivery model. It is at the heart of the discussions we are having on CP2. But when you actually then have the conversations about how to regulate such a transition, it becomes a much more complex conversation because we are operating systems that essentially were not built with that logic, and we need to maintain continuity of operation. If I may just stimulate a conversation about how you see this transition being done in a best possible way. If you have some experiences from CP1, from operations and relations with other clients, or from your own operations, maybe if you could share some advice on this.
Yeah, step by step, yeah. I think always what we see, this is new technology, new architecture. I think we do not have a really practical experience with the exception of Network Manager, yeah. And it makes sense that first I think there should be an agreement about what is a platform, yeah. I think the discussions are ongoing, we need this. And then I can explain only what we are doing with a service-oriented architecture. We develop first a system where we say, okay, it will be a service-oriented system for contingency. Shall provide 70% of the capacity, not provide all the services which we have as functions in the system which we have now available. And then it's the idea that we, because it's regarding the architecture, we expect the system as something where we can include continuous improvement. So we say, okay, 70% is the first point. Yeah, then we have the milestone. When we see it's working with 70%, then we have 2 years later 90%. That's the idea. And we always make checks, validations, yeah, whether we achieve this capacity. Because I think nobody, or I think the airlines would be very angry if we do not provide 100% capacity for a certain while, yeah, or for a certain period. So therefore, I think this bit has to be considered because it's always as well about the performance which we deliver, and performance is safety, capacity, it's then cost efficiency, environment, yeah. And this should be, again, then 100%.
Victor?
Okay, well, from our side, we obviously look it from a different angle, which is how do we evolve our systems in order to be able to work with this new architecture, right? So it's a completely different, the other side of the mirror, I would say, from what you see. So internally, we have been working on this approach for quite some time already before new service delivery model became, let's say, much more talked about. And the way that we are approaching is twofold, right? First of all, try to make sure that any new service that we deliver is already compliant to, let's say, not make the divergence between the legacy architectures and the new architecture larger. I was talking before about these couple of examples, but with everything new that we are doing, it's already being done in that area. And then, for example, in ITEC, in the technological roadmap that we share with our eight ANSPs of the Alliance, we have chosen to take, let's say, we call it a grenade way of working. Not the grenade, the one that explodes, but the fruit, okay, just for everyone calmness and tranquility. Which means that we are starting to extract the elements like these little seeds in the grenade. We are starting to extract the elements from the outside to the inside so that we are able to, let's say, start getting advantage of the new service delivery model quickly without jeopardizing the coherence of the internal kernel. And I think this is very important because the discussion that we will need to have, we will always have to balance between, okay, blank sheet strategy, where we all know that this takes time to do like this, and a strategy which is a bit more hybrid, and we believe it's more usable, where you can actually evolve from where you are. Because we need to balance the, let's say, the strategic ambition with the realism of where all the technology that you know that we are working on is. And I'd like just to stress on one point that you mentioned, coming back to the regulation. I think, you know, I'm very happy that in the discussions, EASA is taking part of that because they are a fundamental part in this. We need to work, all of us need to work together in a different way. EASA also need to adapt what they require for those, you know, new technologies to be certified, and it's really important that we work together in that conversation and work as a European industry to make that happen.
Adrian.
I'm happy that Victor spoke before me because he raised a point here. We are happy that our system is one of the newest in Europe, and it's a modern one, and that allows us to introduce the FFIs as a new technology embedded in the system. So our plan to evolve our system is through Indra contract to evolve systems step by step towards this new kind of technology. And I would like to thank again Indra for the collaboration we have and for the flexibility they show us during so many years. You can be a champion, you can be the first one, but you can move fast locally, but you can only move safely at the speed of the ecosystem. So if the ecosystem is not moving fast enough, you will gain advantage, but at the border, you will face some problems.
Heiko.
Yeah, I also would like to compliment and would be maybe even here a bit more ambitious, because for the time being, what we see in the ANSP environment is that we have a hardware platform and a software running on this hardware platform from the different, let's say, providers. And in the future, it should be in a different way, that we have one common platform infrastructure and we have different services from different providers which are running on this platform. And this is very important because also these services need to be interoperable, they need to be portable from one platform to another platform, and also you should be able to change them. So you have one service A from a provider B, and you just, let's say, replace that by another, let's say, service A coming from provider C. And I think what really the challenge is now that we have to have a legal framework that really supports that we can really also gain all the momentum and the flexibility that we need to do that.
Victor.
Yeah, I think if I may complement to what you just said, Heiko, I think it's absolutely spot on. We need to have platforms that allow, and I like the word that you use, portability, because I think there are different levels in all this discussion. Portability, I think, based on the discussion that we're having at the industry level, is a low-hanging fruit. I think we're all thinking about the same kind of base technologies. There are ad hoc industry standards that everybody is using. So I think portability is probably a low-hanging fruit, and we should definitely go for that fast. And in the discussions that we are having at LIFT with our colleagues of Leonardo, Thales, and Frequentis, we're very aligned in that area. Interoperability, I think it's clear as well, and we have discussed. Just wanted to stress on something regarding interchangeability, and it's that we need, as an industry, to find the right balance. And what do I mean? If we want everything to be fully interchangeable, then that will mean that everything will need to be fully standardized. And getting to those standards will require time and will require a lot of regulation in order for that to happen. And at the same time, If we put the lines in the right places, it will work well. If we draw the lines in the wrong places, it may even, let's say, not foster innovation because we stick to the angle. So I think it's really important that during the conversations we hit collectively the right level to make sure we achieve those objectives, but that we do not create, let's say, an over-regulated standard base that in the end it's a hurdle that will make us go slower.
Heiko, you want to add?
Yeah, I think I really agree what you say, Victor. I think it really also depends on how, let's say, how detailed you design and describe the services. Huh? So the more, let's say, detail you might use, the more, let's say, needs for standardization you might create, which you really don't want. Yeah. So I think that's a good point.
I want to drill a little bit on also the context we have heard earlier about the security context. Because, I mean, TBO is central to the conversation for CP2, so is the next generation air-ground link, the new service delivery model, and we are going into the detail of how that could be regulated in implementation. Another pressure point is, of course, as we propose the next generation framework for deployment, that we really take the security dimension at its core. So if we say that in the next decade we want a system that is able to rely much more on, let's say, standardized data services that are portable from platform to platform, where there is a much higher level of dependency also on data communication between the air and the ground that does not rely only on voice, to be able to offload some workload from the controller, make the controllers more productive. How do you see, I would say, the security dimension? Because I also hear many that say, okay, if you open up the systems, it creates vulnerabilities. We are much better off having locked systems like we did in our center, locally, on site, with our engineers taking care of it. So how do you see this angle?
Well, I think, first of all, your point is fully correct. By using more standard technologies, we gain a lot of advantages, but we are increasing the potential surface of attack of our system. You know, when we had a serial cable that went from the equipment room to the ops room, and all the data went through that serial cable, hacking that serial cable was probably required someone to be there, cut the cable, put something in there, you know, so there were some physical barriers. As we are using standard codes communication, you know, more operating systems, even cloud type technologies, it's clear that we are increasing the surface of exposure. That is undeniable. But that means that I think someone told me a few years ago, security is the new safety. I like the expression, right? In the sense that safety in air traffic is making sure that we have a 360 view from the way that you use that technology and the operational use case to the implementation in the software and how you design the software to make sure that it has the required reliability. The same things go with security. I think we will need to have a 360 view from the point of view of the procedures that the ANSPs will need to follow, the requirements that the system will need to have, the speed at which we will have to upgrade those systems in order to keep them aligned, and also very important, working together with the network providers and the telecommunications providers to make sure they are part of that ecosystem, because they are a fundamental barrier in this protection. It's a multi-layer protection and they play a fundamental barrier.
Heiko.
Yeah, just to complement what you said, Victor, I think the network is really also one of the biggest challenges we need to work on. We need to have, let's say, really robust and resilient and redundant network to really make sure that if you concentrate a lot of services in one or two data centers and the network somehow has a problem, a failure, and cannot recover, that then all of a sudden you are just sitting in front of black screens. That's something that should never happen. So I think that's really vital and very, very important that we have that. Maybe
a more operational question for Dirk and Adrian. We speak a lot about the importance of having a strong air-ground data link. Based on your experience of the use of data link and the rollout, how important is it, getting that dimension right as we move forward in terms of potential productivity gains for air traffic controllers, and what could be very practical steps to improve things? Because we wouldn't like to push for technology and at the end the controllers can make no or limited use of it.
The introduction of data link was and still is a very good advanced technology to be used by the controllers. But what we are experiencing those days is the fact that there are some airliners which they don't want to connect. So I was speaking with one of my colleagues. I was sitting in the position and I tried to connect one company. I will not name it. And I succeed only to connect only 1 out of 10 flights from that specific company. And I'm wondering why. It's too expensive, they don't want to use it, they are not trained for that. But when you don't have all the flights connected, of course the workload, your workload as a controller, it's increased. When you have most of the plane connected, your workload decreased and you can focus on your tasks, your most important tasks. What we did, and I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to share this experience and to be brought at the European level, we impose on our aeronautical information publication that it's mandatory the usage of data link above flight level 315. And it's written in, we still do not impose it as a measure. You are not using go down to 285 or below 285, but it was a tool to increase the connectivity in our upper airspace. And that helped a lot. Of course, we have both technologies. Probably we are, again, the only one in Europe that still have both ATM and fans connectivity, and that helps a lot because we have a lot of flights coming from Far East and Middle East. They still using fans, and they are connected in our airspace.
Dirk.
Yeah, very good points from you. When I remember, I think I started with CPDLC data link 1999 in Maastricht in the ops room with the PETAL trial. Yeah? We are now in the year 2026, and I think now we improve it in a way that it really is now a capacity gainer. Yeah? I think as well with ADS-C APP, where I expect as well a lot of benefits, we have to be careful that there's not the expectation as soon as we introduce this, we increase the capacity by 10%, because it's always about synchronizing the speed of implementation. Yeah, that was with data link the topic. Yeah, at the beginning only few aircraft were equipped. Then we had a huge abortion rate. Yeah, this led to the situation that the ADCOs were not very happy with this. However, because it was introduced as a tool which can be used to play around a little bit, yeah, and to get a bit of feeling of this, this was, I think, a good approach. However, I think we cannot afford always to wait 25 years for the benefits. We have to synchronize better the implementation here. That means as well what we see now, I think the rate of equipment for the airlines is 15% of ADS-C APP. The estimate is when it's 60%, then perhaps we can expect the first benefits. So we see we have to talk about this, we have to synchronize this, yeah, we have to look for forward fitting, whether it's the right one in this case, or we have to look at different measures to have earlier benefits, because I think that was, now it's a success story, yeah, but when I look back, yeah, and when you know the entire history, you have to be careful with the introduction of these issues and expecting a lot, and you are later on disappointed when you not achieve all this what is expected.
I had then a question on TBO, but I will keep it if time permits, because I really want to hear from you what you would expect most next with regards to TBO implementation, if you could have a reasonable ambition level. But let's have a look also at the question that were raised by the floor. So it looks like there are many. I will just start from the top and go down, and we see how far we can go. Isn't SWIM a great tool for preserving the oligopoly of base system suppliers, Thales, Indra, etc.? So if I translate that question into, I would say, a more diplomatic version, I would probably say, isn't the new service delivery model a threat to our industrial champions?
Okay, well, first of all, I like that. Yes, SWIM is our secret plan to conquer the world. So yes, absolutely, keep it. You know, we're going to control you all. No, jokes aside, let me answer in both ways, right? First of all, SWIM is a way to share the data in a standard manner. And by definition, this enables openness. I work with ANSPs that themselves are developing tools based on SWIM without being particularly experts, because the effort required to build them do not require to be one of the champions or the oligopolist, if you want to see it in a negative way. In the end, the more information is available in an open format, the more, let's say, ability for new entrants to be in. New service delivery model will open, of course it will. But I think, you know, to some actors in the European landscape, it was a little bit of a surprise that the industry didn't have any problem with that and embraced it. But this is very simple. We are competing every day, not just in Europe. We are competing outside Europe, and all of this is helping us go faster and is increasing, I think Flor mentioned in the panel this morning, the competitiveness of the European industry, whether it is Thales, Indra mentioned there, or any of the smaller players that we start to have. All of this enables us to be more competitive outside. So we're happy to do that. Sometimes, you know, we will be very good at some of the service, some others will be better at some of the other service. That's fine. We will keep on competing, and that will make us stronger outside of Europe as well.
Thank you, Victor. I guess this question was directly, directed to you. So I will not ask for the others their view, just for the sake of time. But the second one is more related, I think, to the transition and the timing of implementation. I mean, everybody is very busy finalizing the implementation of CP1. Some could say, why on earth are we even speaking about CP2? Our finances are completely dedicated to it, our staff, our engineers. How to handle this transition? Also the connection to finances. Do we have the capacity to now increase or expand the horizon of our implementation capacity? How do you see this, let's say, from I would say mainly ANSP perspective, if I may say? First, Adrian and Dirk.
Well, we are speaking about CP2 even before finalizing all of us the CP1, because we have, as a lesson learned, we have to plan well in advance to put the finance where is needed in order to be ready and to complete all the CP2's challenges in time and on budget, of course, because you can complete it on time, but with extra budget. So that's the key point. Another thing that I would like to add, we complete also another tool under the CP1 framework, the complexity tool. It was also introduced together with the, just right before the FFI's implementation. A new tool that, using the data coming from the network manager, will allow us to measure and to calculate the complexity in the sector based on the interdependencies between trajectories. And this tool will allow us, if the complexity goes up, we will decrease the number of the sectors and we will open more sectors. If the complexity is low, we can accommodate more flights in that portion of the airspace. So that gives us more flexibility in using the controllers and the workforce, and not opening the sector where it's not needed or opening too late. So that helps a lot. So, but this was also implemented under CP1, and we have to discuss the CP2 before starting, just in order to be well prepared for all the challenges that we might face.
Dirk, you have a view on that? It's to have a predictable framework to work towards?
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge here to meet the implementation dates here, which are set by CP1 and will be set by CP2, because there are always other initiatives which are running in parallel, yeah, which has nothing to do with CP1 and CP2. And then if you are under performance pressure, yeah, then it's always the point that you have to decide which is now the better one in which time frame. Yeah. Nevertheless, I think what we identified in CP1 were good initiatives, and although perhaps now the one or other will not meet the implementation date now, we shall continue with CP2 activities here, because we have to plan the future, and we have to align there. We have to see what are the best measures for us in Europe to standardize and to be on one page with the measures which we are implementing. So, yeah.
I will go to another question, which is addressed to you, Adrian, and it is related to the importance of finishing the CP1 work. And for you to share your experience with the FFI's implementation. You don't have blood on you, we observe. But I think there is also a question of what concrete benefits you see from the implementation.
So the implementation and the data provided by the FFI's implementation increase the volume of the information that we receive, and also the fidelity of the data allows us to see the takeoff mass, allow us to better calculate the trajectory, and to have more predictable top of climb, top of descent, and this kind of information, which is useful for the controllers. We plan to introduce also the APP, but I will challenge the industry to help us to combine all these trajectory, because now I have one flight data process trajectory, one calculated by the system. I have an FFI's trajectory, and I will have the third one downloaded from the aircraft. You cannot put in front of the controller 3 different trajectories, okay, and ask him to separate them, because which will be the real one? So somehow we have to find the technology and the way to combining all these 3 trajectories in only one, and to be the reliable one.
I don't know if someone wants to react to this. I'm just trying to press through as many questions as we can. So let's maybe at the end see if we can complement. The next one is on cloud, and how basically to regulate the fact that some of the systems will be deployed using cloud technology. So maybe Victor.
Well, first of all, I said at the beginning of my interventions that the technology needs to be done for a purpose. So the first thing that I would recommend everybody thinks about, whether public cloud or private cloud, is what are you trying to achieve, right? Because in the end, the systems and the technology will need to be capable to work in either environment, so that it is, not a limiting factor. But obviously, typically public cloud is really good when you need to increase your capacity or reduce it very quickly. That is super efficient. We have done some tests for when we're doing testing, or we're doing extensive testing and we need to create a huge test environment. We think also from a training perspective, it's also useful. For a 24/7 operation, it depends, but our experience with some of our customers make the maths of the economics That is my recommendation when you choose public cloud or private cloud, because when you are 24/7 paying an Azure or a Google Cloud or whatever, and you compare it with the investment in a known infrastructure, sometimes let's say the costs speak by themselves. But my only recommendation is both have advantages and disadvantages. You need to choose if you need a hammer or you need a screwdriver for your particular need before deciding.
The next question is about lessons learned from CP1, and I read in the question, and sorry for trying to make a synthesis, that maybe one of the lessons learned from CP1 is that we had to deal with elements in CP1 that were not sufficiently mature for implementation. I'm just presupposing. But let's have a round on CP1 lessons learned to make sure we don't repeat that in CP2, and I guess everyone will have a say on this. So maybe I give the floor to you, Heiko, first, as you are in the center of this.
I think the first lessons learned is really easy. You can say you cannot walk alone. So this needs to be done with the buy-in of the stakeholders. It's very important that they feel that they're involved, that they also have the possibility to influence the direction, to steer it. And I think this kind of co-creation, this involvement of the operational stakeholders is really a key. And I think we should really not, let's say, let that down. We should continue like that also with the CP2. And I think also the coordination is very important. That's what we need. We need a coordinated and synchronized deployment. First lesson learned.
Okay, importance of coordination. Dirk, you have a view?
Yeah, sometimes I think we have the problem as DFS, I think, that we are sometimes over-ambitious. So that we, for example, for the extended arrival manager, we said, okay, we would like to have all these different connections, and later on we observed, on these connections there are only 3 flights per hour. So whether we have this connection or not, it doesn't help us really in the arrival management, and it's not an improvement, but will force us to do something where we say, okay, perhaps we do something else, and this is better. And complexity management tools, we are very good in making complexity management tools complex, So well, something, the task was very easy, from my point of view, and then we add functionalities, and then we were late. This is sometimes, perhaps this what we experience with ANSP, or you experience as well with us sometimes, okay. But there we have to be more careful what is really necessary and what is important, what will increase the performance, the why, and this should be somewhere then as in the implementing rule, and all the other things where we say, okay, this is now nice to have somewhere in the future, could be done later.
Okay, focus on what brings benefits operationally, and don't try to regulate everything. Adrian?
So the lesson learned from the CP1, what we learned is the fact that everybody needs to be aligned and everybody needs to be synchronized, because otherwise you are gaining some advantages, but you cannot put this into operation and to an increase in capacity, or because at the border you will face the barrier, and not everybody will be on the same page with you. So moving fast is I had some blood on me because we discovered some not okay behavior, because we are the first one and nobody discovered that. But we managed together with Indra to succeed and to have a good implementation for that.
Okay, the value of synchronization, I would say. And Victor?
No, I think my colleagues have said it perfectly. Focus. Think about what you need to focus. I think coming back to your example about giving the controller too many trajectories, if we want to do too many things and put them in front of the controllers at the same time, maybe we will not get the expected benefits. So focus on what's important. That would be my thinking.
Mm-hmm. Heiko?
I would have another one, because there were some, let's say, panels before where we talked about that. Really make sure that the military is involved right from the beginning. I think that's really something that's key, and this is something where we really need to work hard on that.
Next question. read it as digitalization also brings risks. How can they be mitigated when thinking about a process like CP2?
Well, I think we touched on a lot of them during the conversation already. We touched cyber, we touched the legacy thing. So I'd like to take it from another angle, which is adoption. And you know, because one thing is to have the technology and the other thing is to have this adopted by the people that need to use it. And there is a lot of change management, a lot of people management in this journey. We were in our examples in the discussions for Munich. I still remember saying, yeah, okay, the controller needs to start trusting the machine. That means, A, the machine needs to do the job precisely on the one hand, but on the other hand, the controller needs to stop doing something that he or she was doing. And that requires a process of you know, psychological change and trusting more in the machine, and that doesn't mean that your job is less important or less critical. It's just adapting to the new tool. So adoption, to me, it's a very critical element that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at you in case you want to react. What is, in your opinion, about the future of data link? What is, in your opinion, I would say, the future of data link in Europe, given the current supply, regulatory requirements, and emerging tech? So how would you see the future of data link in Europe?
I think now we have it, yeah? CPDLC. Next one is then perhaps an ADSC, EPP. I think that we can use it more and more now, and now I look in the direction of Victor for further automation here, so that we send out messages in an automatic way to the next sectors, you know, so that we do not need intervention of ETCOs anymore. For example, to send back or send away on the next frequency an aircraft could be done when an aircraft is in a certain area, and then the ETCO has a reduced workload again, yeah? So that we combine more and more now the functionality, which was, I think, a parallel path to the radio frequency, now link it more to the ATM system and the capabilities of the ATM systems.
Victor?
I took note in my book.
You took note, okay. Adrian?
I believe that the data link will be used more and more in the future years. We have to pay attention to two things, in my opinion. One is we already have some complaints about the usage of the CPDLC at lower level. Pilots complain about that because they increase the usage of CPDLC, increase the workload in the cockpit, and they are not happy with that. And what we have discovered using extensively the CPDLC technology is that some of the controllers, we have to pay attention to the training, because some of the controllers will lose some basic skills which were trained for. So they are losing the ability to scan, to predict what is happening, because all the things are happening automatically behind their knowledge, behind they be aware of. So we have to pay attention what other abilities we have to train the controllers to deal with such automatic system.
We will not have the time to go through all of them, but as a final round, I would like to ask you if you could decide one thing that should be in CP2, if you could dream, and everyone would have, it would be a completely undemocratic process. You could impose something. What would this one thing be? And I will also start with Victor.
Well, I swim, because it's our way to maintain the oligopoly. No, jokes aside, I think I will link it to one of the questions, that why do you need a regulation for a new digital platform? I think what we are talking about in the new service delivery model is not just a digital platform. It's a completely different way of managing, you know, the air traffic technology, and that requires everyone to move in the same direction, from the ANSPs to the ground industry, to Eurocontrol, to SDM, SJU. So I think that needs to be in for sure. It's going to be in anyway, so it's an easy wish, but I'm pretty sure that this needs to go in, because if not, it's one of these elements that if only one part moves, the benefit will not be achieved. So it is essential that we make sure that this is properly coordinated, because we need everyone to move in order for that to bring benefits.
So one vote for the new service delivery model. Heiko.
Yeah, I think Victor already said, let's say, most of the topics. The service delivery model, I think, is very important to gain the flexibility, to gain the speed. But I think also, as it was mentioned before, the trajectory-based operations is important, where we already start working on now with the CP1, with the FFIs as a first, let's say, step, and also the ADC EPP, which would be the second step. So therefore, I think that also TBAO would be on my wish list.
Okay, we are adding elements. Dirk.
Yeah, this is, I think, I have a similar wish list, yeah, but I think we should deliver the digital sky in a pragmatic and realistic way.
And Adrian?
I totally agree, we should be realistic, and as what Dirk already said, we should implement what we need, not something to be implemented only if it's mandatory. So we should sit and think what are our needs and what needs to be implemented to be efficient and very pragmatic.
Thank you. So I would like to conclude, because I was asked to finish on time to make sure that we catch up, by thanking you all for discussion on a process that is ongoing, which is quite ambitious, because nothing has been decided at present. It's a process that will still take us at least until the summer to have a proposal ready for the Commission before it goes into regulatory scrutiny, etc. But thank you very much. I think you did very well, and I hope we were able to answer as many of the questions that were listed, and those that we were not able to answer, I was told we will somehow find a way to answer them offline. So thank you very much, and bon appétit.